The folder lands with a quiet thud that echoes louder than any shout. Patel's grin flickers then vanishes. Crockett's voice slices through the air, calm and cold. "Congressman Patel, can you deny that this signature is yours?" The room holds its breath. Cameras zoom in, shutters clicking like heartbeats. Patel blinks once, twice, searching for words that won't come. The crowd shifts, a ripple of disbelief spreading across faces. Even the lights seem to hum louder in the silence that follows. Crockett doesn't move, she just watches him unravel beneath the weight of his own handwriting. One tremor in his jaw, one bead of sweat, truth breaking through arrogance. And that was the moment Patel's empire began to collapse. The morning sun glinted off the polished steps as Patel made his entrance, flanked by aides and cameras. Every stride was deliberate, every nod choreographed. He adjusted his cufflinks, flashed that knowing smile, and let the press capture the image he wanted: power in motion. "He's got this," one staffer murmured, their confidence echoing his own. Inside, the hearing room buzzed with expectation. Reporters filled the back rows, screens lit with headlines already praising his composure. Patel faces critics with calm authority. He thrived on those words. Taking his seat, Patel surveyed the room like a ruler inspecting his court. He spotted Crockett across the table, quiet, unreadable, almost invisible. To him, she was a minor inconvenience, a name he'd forget by tomorrow. He'd handled louder threats before, dismantled tougher challengers with a single sound bite. This would be no different. His voice, smooth and rehearsed, filled the hall. "I'm honored to serve the people with full transparency and accountability," he said, every syllable dipped in charm. Cameras clicked, aides nodded. The crowd leaned into the illusion. For Patel, this was theater, and he was its star. Each gesture, each pause, perfectly timed to project control. Beyond the lights, screens blinked with live reactions, anchors admiring his poise, tweets praising his statesmanship. It was the same performance he'd given 100 times before, and it had always worked. He believed in his own myth, that nothing could touch him, that truth itself bent around his confidence. But while Patel basked in the glow of his own certainty, Crockett sat silent, hands resting on a single folder. Her eyes stayed fixed on him, patient, unshaken. What Patel didn't know was that she wasn't coming empty-handed. They underestimated her because she never shouted. While others fought for airtime, Crockett fought for facts. Her mornings began before sunrise, coffee cooling beside stacks of files marked in yellow and red. She traced connections through half-legible memos, campaign ledgers, and whispers from those too afraid to speak on record. Each late-night call added another piece to the puzzle, another truth Patel had buried beneath confidence and charm. There were moments she questioned the cost. The exhaustion, the loneliness of standing on principle in a world addicted to noise. But then she'd remember the people who couldn't speak, who didn't have the power to confront someone like him. That was her anchor. She didn't seek revenge, she sought restoration. When the final document landed on her desk, silence filled the room. She read it once, twice, her breath steady, her resolve sharper than ever. The evidence didn't just expose corruption, it revealed the anatomy of deceit itself. Crockett closed the folder, her expression calm, almost serene. Tomorrow, she would face him. Tomorrow, truth would finally have a voice. Her evidence wasn't just damning, it was undeniable. Patel's rise was never an accident, it was an orchestration. In public, he was the golden son of reform, speaking of unity and service with the polish of a seasoned orator. Crowds cheered, cameras adored him, and headlines called him the voice of reason. But behind those speeches were rooms lit by low lamps and whispered deals. Donors with untraceable accounts, consultants who could turn scandal into strategy, and media allies who knew exactly which truths to bury and which lies to amplify. Every handshake came with a promise, every smile concealed a price. Patel didn't just play politics, she built a network that thrived on silence and fear. His staff learned early, loyalty was rewarded, dissent was erased. He wrapped corruption in the language of progress, and the nation applauded the illusion. The empire grew funded by shadows, protected by influence, polished by narrative, and while Patel moved like a king in a game he thought he owned, Crockett watched from the edges. She saw what others dismissed: the inconsistencies, the sudden wealth, the way his circle tightened each election cycle. Where he sought legacy, she sought truth. Empires like his never fall overnight, they rot from within. And Patel's had already begun. But every empire hides a crack, and Crockett had just found his. The message came without a name, just a time and a location. Crockett arrived to an empty parking garage, her footsteps echoing against concrete. A single car idled in the corner, headlights dimmed. From the shadows stepped a former aide, face hidden beneath a hood, voice trembling with guilt. "I can't carry it anymore," they whispered, handing her a small, encrypted drive. "Everything's in there: the money, the deals, the cover-ups." Then they were gone, swallowed by the dark. Hours later, under the soft glow of her desk lamp, Crockett plugged it in. Folders unfolded like confessions, payment trails, internal memos, coded language linking Patel's empire to secret donors and offshore accounts. Her eyes moved steadily, the weight of each line pressing deeper. This was no rumor, this was proof. Betrayal had birthed courage, and courage had delivered justice, its weapon. As she reached the final document, her breath caught. It was a scanned authorization, dated, stamped, and signed in bold black ink. The name beneath the signature was unmistakable. The final page contained one signature and Patel's name in black ink. The hearing room buzzed with anticipation, cameras blinking red as Patel took his seat. His posture was perfect: shoulders square, chin lifted, confidence radiating like a signal. He greeted the panel with that same well-rehearsed charm, the smile that had carried him through scandals untouched. Reporters whispered, noting his composure. He spoke first, voice smooth and deliberate. "I'm here, as always, in the service of the people," he said, pausing for the cameras to catch his sincerity. Questions began, routine, predictable. Patel answered each one like a man dancing to familiar music. "I have nothing to hide. Every transaction has been transparent." His tone carried conviction, but beneath it, a hint of strain crept in. He could feel the room's rhythm shifting, subtle but real. Across the table, Crockett remained silent. She didn't fidget, didn't write notes, didn't break eye contact. Her stillness unsettled him more than any question. He looked her way once, expecting confrontation, but found only calm, a mirror he couldn't read. The exchanges continued, meaningless volleys of politics, until the chair finally turned to her. "Representative Crockett, do you have any questions for the witness?" Crockett's fingers brushed the edge of the folder beside her. The air seemed to still, the noise thinning into silence. Patel leaned back, confident, unbothered. She leaned forward slowly, deliberately, and dropped the folder. The folder lands with a quiet thud, the kind of sound that feels louder than thunder. Crockett's voice cuts through the air, calm but edged with steel. "Congressman Patel, can you confirm this authorization dated March 14th, signed by you, approved a transfer to an offshore account linked to your campaign donor?" Patel forces a chuckle, shaking his head. "You're grasping, Congresswoman. My team handles dozens of authorizations." Crockett interrupts softly, "Then they forged your name?" A camera clicks. Someone gasps. The silence deepens until the hum of the overhead lights sounds like a heartbeat. Crockett flips the next page. 3 transactions. Same account. Same signature. Patel's smile falters. He leans forward, voice tightening. "This is a political hit job." Outside the chamber, tweets explode, #Crockett Truth trending. Patel cornered live. News anchors whisper in studio feeds, eyes wide. "She's got him," Crockett continues, steady as a metronome. "Here are your emails authorizing payments to lobbying firms. Dates match the wire transfers." The audience stirs, shock rippling like a wave. Patel opens his mouth, then closes it. The laughter is gone. The control is gone. Every camera locks on his trembling hands. Crockett's gaze stays fixed. The documents speak for themselves. And then, For the first time in his career, Patel had nothing left to say. It happened faster than anyone expected. By evening, Patel's office was in chaos, aides packing boxes, phones ringing unanswered. His once loyal chief of staff slipped out a side door, eyes down, badge left on the desk. Reporters swarmed the Capitol steps. The same anchors who once called Patel the immovable force now replayed his stammering silence on loop. Headlines screamed, "The fall of a power broker." Donors withdrew statements. Endorsements vanished. The empire that had seemed unbreakable just hours before was collapsing in real time. Meanwhile, Crockett walked through the lobby's glare of flashbulbs. No smirk, no speech. Just a quiet nod as cameras shouted her name. She didn't need to say a word, the truth had spoken for her. Behind her, the building loomed like a monument to everything she'd just dismantled. Inside, Patel sat alone in the committee room, staring at the empty chair across from him, hers. The echoes of the confrontation still hung in the air. Every sound felt distant now, the ticking clock, the fading hum of power leaving the room. Justice hadn't come with fire or fury. It came with calm, relentless clarity, but what came next transformed a moment into a movement. Within hours, the hearing clips swept across the nation. Millions watched the moment Crockett said, "Truth doesn't tremble under pressure," and felt something stir. It wasn't just politics anymore, it was personal. Students replayed it in classrooms, activists shared it at rallies, and everyday people whispered it like a mantra. Hashtags flooded timelines, hashtag Crockett Truth, hashtag Justice in Action. On morning shows, hosts analyzed the confrontation frame by frame. It wasn't just what she said, one commentator noted. It's how she stood, calm, certain, unafraid. Late-night comedians turned Patel's denial into punchlines, while serious voices on policy panels called it a reckoning long overdue. In districts far from the capital, local officials began facing their own scrutiny. A whistleblower in Texas stepped forward. Another in Ohio followed. Courage was spreading not through outrage, but through example, and through it all, Crockett stayed silent, letting the truth ripple outward. Her face became a symbol not of political victory, but of integrity under fire. America hadn't just watched a scandal, it had witnessed a shift from fear to accountability, from silence to courage. But Crockett wasn't done. She had one final message. Crockett stood before the cameras one last time, the noise of the crowd soft behind her. Her voice was calm, the kind that carried without needing to rise. "Power built on deception always collapses," she said, eyes steady on the lens. "Because truth doesn't shout, it endures. It waits, quietly, until the noise fades. And then it stands." Reporters leaned forward, but she didn't boast or gloat. "This was never about one man," she continued. "It's about every person who's been told to stay silent, to accept corruption as the cost of politics. Justice begins when we stop accepting it." The crowd broke into applause, slow at first, then rising like a wave. A soft, triumphant score swelled beneath her words. "And that's why the nation will remember," she said, turning to leave, "the day truth finally spoke louder than power." The image freezes, the folder hitting the desk, Patel's face draining of confidence, the silence that followed. Crockett's voice echoes softly over the replay. "That moment wasn't about humiliation," she says. "It was about truth finally being heard in a room built to silence it." The screen shifts to real people watching on phones, in cafes, in classrooms, faces lit by the glow of belief, not just curiosity. Because when truth stands tall, her voice continues, every lie begins to fall. Then she speaks directly to the audience. "If you believe truth should never be silenced, share this story. Let it be a reminder that integrity still matters, and courage still counts." The music swells, hopeful, cinematic, larger than the moment itself. The camera slowly pulls back, the hearing room shrinking into memory. Words appear on screen. "Truth doesn't tremble under pressure." A final beat of silence. Then the logo fades in, bright and steady. This isn't just the end of a story. It's the beginning of a movement.